Hello, Annabella and Sarah here. We are back.
Hello.
And not a huge amount of news. Back in front, all of us at the same time. Not a huge amount of news at the moment. One thing that's been
Some
fun
little
this
things
week.
to talk
Yeah, well, GameStop's not so little.
True.
Yeah, so if you I'm not a stock trader, so I'm not going to give you the full detail on this, and I hope that I'm getting this roughly right. Hello, puppy. So basically, you've got hedge funders who work in the stock exchange, and I don't know how this is even legal, but hedge funds can sell and buy stocks that they don't actually own, and then they can buy them a bit later. Now, there must be a limited time as to when they're forced to buy them in order to sell them on. When you do a short, you are basically
borrowing stock.
Well, yeah,
it's how I heard it described. You borrow stock.
Yeah. So if the price goes up to here, right, and then you have it on a short, that means that if it dips below a certain price point, then it automatically sells. Now, how can you automatically sell something you don't own? I don't know. But the idea is that if you sell it at the top here, like you sell it for sort of, $10, and then it's dropping, and then you're obliged to buy it in order to forward it on to the new owner, then you buy it at the bottom here, like $6, right? And then you sell it back, then you deliver the stock to them, and you've just sold it for 10. So you make a profit on something that you don't own at all. And there was a guy on Reddit who noticed that one of these hedge funders was buying a huge amount of stocks on GameStop, which is not a big company. And he got really suspicious. He thought, oh, we know what's going to happen. They're going to try and force the price down. So these people seem to be useful if you want to destroy a business on the stock market. And so there'd been, when he saw that, he put it on Reddit and rallied the troops. Now, when I'm talking about troops, we're talking like 2.5 million people, from what I understand, little players in the stock market. And they said, buy. So the guy sells it, let's say, pretend it was like $10. And instead of it and it dips, right? It dips a little bit, so it drops below. So he sells all these stocks. And then everybody goes buying. Instead of it dropping, it goes up by miles. And the hedge funds are sitting there going, there's nothing they can do. They're going to have to buy it. And so they're obliged to buy it, even no matter what the price is. So they lose all of that money, like billions of dollars in the end. And then when they bought it, then they have to pass it on, and then they push the price higher again. So you can't leave it there. It's artificially inflated. But the idea was to kill these hedge funds that usually set out to destroy people. At the same time, the first time I heard about it was this thing about Robin Hood, which is all meant to be about the original story of Robin Hood's take from the rich, give to the poor. And yet these people were doing the opposite. There was an employee in Robin Hood that said, look, I work for Robin Hood, don't kill me. I'm just an engineer, I just do my job. But I've just seen this pressure coming in to force to either limit people buying the stocks or something along those lines. And he says, I'm just telling everybody. He says, I might lose my job, but, fuck these motherfuckers. So, of course, that word got out as well, that here's a whistleblower showing more illegal activity, that they were putting pressure on to stop the trade of GameStop so that these little people could not push the price up any higher. So, yeah, there were lots of funny memes and things coming out around Wall Street being beaten at their own game. And this is just one example, but where is it going to go from there?
Right. It's they have to buy stock, and then there isn't really that much because it isn't a big company, and nobody wants to sell it to them. So the price is even like, that's how it goes from just rising like this to like that. So yeah, it's a fake world. I mean, and people are criminals all over the place. I mean, recently stuff came out about this guy, Rick Wilson, who's a big guy in the Lincoln Project, which is the huge, supposedly Republicans who hate Trump. And he's been grooming young men and boys for a long time. And
Ooh.
his partners in the Lincoln Project knew it, and journalists knew it, and held the story back until after the elections. So that's a pretty big scandal.
Wow.
So, and who else is in the scandal right now is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yep.
Because she went on this long rant about her PTSD about what happened at the Senate on January 6th, and and how it just makes it worse when people deny your experience. I mean, it was a long rant, and it turns out she wasn't in the Senate building. The Capitol building is here, and a few blocks away, there are two other office buildings where other people where they have their offices. And they have an underground tunnel, but nobody went into the underground tunnel. And still, she's doubling down and going, they don't know that. They came through the tunnels. And she went on to say that a Capitol Police knocked on her door, but he was acting weird. And he didn't have a partner, and he was looking really angry at me. And I was really upset, and I hid in my bathroom, and it was like, she's totally getting busted on this. And I read part of a thread, and what was interesting for me to note is that when people are saying, here's a map, this is where her office is, she was not in the Capitol building. And another person said they didn't come down to our office building. It didn't happen. So what I've seen was that the people who are defending her always name call. They're always nasty. They'll say, sorry, maps don't lie. Here it is. And somebody will say, look at these pictures. They got into Nancy Pelosi's office. So fuck you, asshole.
Oh, but wow.
Nancy Pelosi has her federal office in the Capitol building, and she has her state office in that other building.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, people have been programmed to be so angry on the left, and so reactive. You don't just come back and do logic. You start name calling. It's ad hominem attacks. It's incredible to watch. Kind of sad.
Like a zoo. It's like a zoo.
Yeah.
And it's all sort of bubbled to the surface, isn't it? It's like no civilized behavior anymore at all.
No. Thankfully, my Twitter thread is all love and light. I mean, like sharing stories, and I end up going, thank you, I appreciate you, I love you, and like, I love you too. I'm so glad I found you here on Twitter. So I just don't get involved in that stuff because it's not fun. But speaking of corrupt media, brainwashing people, so Mike Lindell, this is my pillow guy, got on an interview on Newsmax, which is supposed to be more right-leaning. Mm-hmm. He had two of their hosts with him. It was just, split screen. And they were asking him about censorship. And he said, well, I'm being censored because I have all the data to support voter fraud. And he's talking, and the guy in the middle says, Mike, talks over him because he's louder. We don't talk. Here at Newsmax, we realize that the courts didn't support it, and we don't have evidence. And Mike is still trying to talk, and the woman's sitting there going,
"Oh, they know, they know about it."
Yeah, and it just went on for the longest time, where he just kept going, "No, don't talk about that. We just want to talk about this thing. No, we won't. No, Mike, be quiet," and just talking over him, and his volume was louder, so you couldn't hear him, and people in the droves are just going, canceled my subscription to Newsmax. You're out. So the power of the people.
Yeah, that's it. And that seems to be the theme, isn't it? It's about I was watching another lady who does similar stuff to us, and she was saying, it's not about walking down the street and protesting or posting something on, on social media. It's actually about doing something. Do something about it. Here they had the opportunity to bust a hedge fund, and they did. They put their money up there and they did it. And here's this thing with Newsmax, that if they're not giving you what you want, then leave. Shut them down. Don't complain and keep watching, because they want your eyeballs. That's where they get their advertising money from. So leave. And they were saying, what would happen if we all did that with Amazon, right? What if we all left Facebook and went to MeWe all at once? Imagine.
Or off Twitter, or
yeah. If they have no audience, they have no power.
Yeah. The CEO of Amazon just recently quit his job, Bezos. And supposedly it's because he wants to focus on these other projects. They always have something, but that's a big CEO resigning, and to add to so many others.
Yeah, now I don't know I don't know if I can find it again now, but there was an explanation of that he was, the way that Amazon had been set up was that he was some sort of director over the top of the board. Very unusual. Usually you have the board and they look after the CEO, whereas he was above the board, and he had resigned that position, put himself back in under the board perhaps, or level with the board, like in a slightly different place, so that if he suddenly disappeared, like he got detained, that the place could keep running and make their own decisions. That was what happened. So he hasn't left altogether. He's repositioned himself.
Strategy.
Yeah.
So the Keystone Pipeline, what's interesting is there's a whole lot of talk about that. I mean, the point is it's a less expensive, safer way to deliver the oil. If we don't use that, then we have to truck it or train it. And all of those things are owned by
Biden's friends.
What's his name? Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah, Warren Buffett, who happened to have given, I think, $58 million or something to the Biden administration. So it's like Biden's not signing executive orders. He's signing paybacks for people who gave him money. Here you go. Here's your payback. It's a sick world. Somebody who's actually doing something interesting is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a freshman representative from Georgia. And at one point she was supporting QAnon, and boy, she's going in balls to the wall. And they're saying, oh, get her off all the committees and get her out of here. And she's basically saying, fuck you, you're not doing that to me. And she's actually very much like Trump. She just says it like it is. She doesn't do politispeak, As she said, it's so stupid. The more they keep trying to stop me, the more support I got.
Right.
From the people, right? Because I think she's raised $125,000 in the last week or so.
Woo.
People are like on her side. So the strategy of the left isn't working as well anymore. That's good to hear.
It is. So with all these big changes, where you put your focus is the key, isn't it? That seems to be the thing to look at. I mean, at the moment, there seems to be an awful lot of fear porn about the vax. Coming onto social media at the moment, lots of shots of bad pun, lots of footage of people who've got the shakes, and there's people who are talking about people dying, this kind of stuff, and it's making a lot of people anxious. I had a dream last night, which was very much about, scary things being thrown at me, but then realizing they were not hurting me at all. They were just like part of I don't know. It's because we often talk about this being a movie. We're meant to be watching a movie and don't get too involved in it. But I woke up in the middle of the night, like blissfully happy, like, oh, this really is a load of rubbish. It really is just fiction. And where you put your focus is where you add your energy. So if you think of that through your day, that whenever you're introduced to one of these ideas where it's going to make you anxious or angry or frustrated or powerless, that if you go, oh, I can feel that now, and turn it around into, okay, what do I want instead? This is what I'm going to focus on. This is what we're going to make. We can make this happen. And we don't have to force it. We just have to imagine it and think about how cool it is once it's here. Be in it. Be it. And
exactly.
I think that seemed to be the theme that came through for me today.
Nice. Well, I read that COVID cases in the U.S. dropped 44% and 30% worldwide since Biden was elected. So, the CDC changed their guidelines for how many cycles to do on the tests. So we're getting fewer false positives. So that's the beginning of the end. I know people are still insanely locked down. California is, but we almost have enough signatures to recall Gavin Newsom. And we got to the middle of March. So things are happening. I think it's so obvious that the dark is losing its power, and you can watch it and laugh at it and just keep your focus on the light.
Yeah, yeah. When there's money issues, it's much harder to do that, I think. People sometimes, if they've had their business closed down or whatever, and if you've got extra money and you can see your neighbors are in need, then make sure that you reach out and look after them, because you never know when you're going to need your neighbor, and you never know when the money might be distributed later on, hopefully this year, and then we can all breathe a sigh of relief that you may get a lot of gratitude back from them, not necessarily money, but nobody will hopefully need it by that stage. But
right,
just look after the people around you if you can, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it as well. I think we just have to start. You think of it as it is a war, and we have to look after each other.
good one.
So I think we're done.
My mouth stopped talking, so I guess we're done.
Feel free to put your comments below, and we'll see you next week. Bye.